Hey everyone, have a great afternoon. Hope you're having a great afternoon. I certainly am. And I hope your week is off to a good start here on Tuesday, July 1st, and hopefully we all have a great month. Before I talk about my books, in the interest of transparency, I wanted to talk a little bit about the direction of the author portion of this channel. So each video, um, on marketing always says that you got to get back to your audience, let them have a chance to interact with you. Um, So hopefully I'm going to be doing that and also putting some things out there with the for the audience. That way, I'm not just taking from the audience, I'm trying to be like I said, transparent here. So besides teasing my upcoming novels, one, as you can see in the background there, Murder for Hire, a Rod Hawks mystery, is the first one that I hope to have coming out soon. Like I said, I have talked to a couple editors and hopefully we have something to move forward with, even though there's some things that I have to rewrite and actually need to write in some of the later chapters that I have outlined. But before we get into talking about Rod Hawks and what's happening with him, I also want to talk about the other two. One is a book that came to me as an idea many, many years ago, probably over 25 years ago, called The Coin. Um, the coin holds significance to this individual and in his family due to religious preferences. So we have that coming up. The other one is a historical fiction, sort of a fan fiction. I hesitate to call it that, about Anne Boleyn. And we all know she's pretty famous as Henry VIII's second wife, and was part of the reason, or was the main reason, that the Church of England split from the Pope, and now we have the Church of England, um, with the Archbishop of Canterbury being the head of the church. So um, that's sort of going to be a little bit of a different take because not a lot's known about her childhood. So it's just kind of me filling in what wishful thinking in the background of that. Um, the other thing I'm going to talk about here is some book reviews. I'm going to take more of a fan approach than and critique the books that way, more so than the critical approval. And if you want to know what that looks like, just go on Amazon. You can see the difference. A fan will review a book and it will be a few paragraphs long, or maybe just a paragraph or a few sentences long. But then you see a book critic go through and, it's page after page of a critique of the book. And then you don't really ever get a feeling of whether or not they liked it, whether or not it's a good book because of the way it's, broken down into pieces there. Um, so, I'm going to take kind of that approach. I'm going to take that fan approach where, just like at the movies, there's always that one movie that everybody loves and the critics hate. And there's been those movies that, the critics absolutely love, but nobody goes to see them. So what I'm hoping to give is sort of more that fan perspective, because a lot of how books get sold is by word of mouth. Hey, this book was this or that. One of the books I'm going to talk about today was one that I just happened to come across in a secondhand bookstore. Actually, not a secondhand bookstore, a secondhand shop. And what I really liked about shopping there is you can pick up books really, really cheap, but you also see some titles that, oh, I've heard about that, but I didn't have $30 to go spend on it, but I have $4 to spend on it here. So, there's always that option there as well. That may get me in trouble with some book publishers by admitting that out loud. But there's a lot of things online right now about publishing books and being able to do it yourself and paying some of these websites some very small monetary value to publish your book, or as I hear with them with some of the other platforms, the author is only getting about 45% of or 50% of the profits made from the book, the other 50 going to that website and various distributions. But anyway, back to here. Um, So the other thing I'm going to do on this channel is I'm going to offer some biographies and autobiographies of some of the authors that are out there, um, and be able to talk about them. You know, some of my favorite authors of who's out there. Um, One of my favorites is James Patterson, who's my writing style takes a lot after, quick, short chapters, that kind of thing. Um, Although I've been told I need to add some more detail and character development, so I'm not quite, James Patterson is, because he's great at that. Um, but that's how I kind of like to read. I go through a lot of his novels really, really quickly. Um, and some of the others, Michael Crichton, and I also like Bill Bryson. He's writes with a sense of humor. You hear about his tales of his long hikes and walks. I'm currently reading his one. It's an older novel, called Road to Little Dibley, and he's walking across England. He's walking across the UK. So I read the first one of his I read was his book about hiking on the Appalachian Trail. The book was much better than the movie. Um, but anyway, I really enjoy him and some others. Some of the other autobiographies that I like to read are more, and that I'll talk about on this channel, is like Meb Keflezny's book, 26 Marathons, and it gives out his 26 life lessons. Des Linden's book, um, about her life and some of the difficulties she overcame, learning to, let me just get that pulled up here for you. Um, so, so I might to run a memoir, of the Boston Marathon champion, Des Linden. Great book. I have quoted one of the things from that book about, um, act like the thing you're trying to become. And I've talked about being an author for a long time. It's something I've wanted to do since I first entered college at 18 years old. I've always wanted to be a writer. I worked as a journalist for a while before getting into healthcare, and that took me in a totally different path. And now I'm back to being an author. And part of it is that quote motivating me to say, hey, act like that thing you're trying to become. So I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to put things out there, I'm trying to write more. Um, and be that person that I've always wished to be. So yeah, and that's pretty great. That's where I want to be there. Um, but anyway, her book is great. Another one is Peter Sagan. I have gotten into cycling over the years and watching, the Tour de France. And Peter Sagan was always, there were races where he, sections of that race where he just knew he wasn't going to be one of the best guys for, King of the Mountain trophy or anything like that at the end of the Tour de France. But he had a humorous outlook on it. He would ride, he stayed up with the group so that he wouldn't, he could always meet the cutoff times. There were times he would stop and have a sandwich with a family along the side of the road and things like that. So there were things about him, that intrigued me and then made me want to read his book. His book is kind of humorous. Um, But anyway, I'll leave that for another day. Again, part of this channel is going to be book reviews, and I'll review his book. And as you can tell, as a Peter Sagan fan, it was a book that I kind of enjoyed. Um, so next up, moving away more to the status of this channel and what it's going to be. Like I said, teasing the Rod Hawks mystery, as you can see there over my shoulder. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about Rod, who he is, what he looks like, because I worked him up on Canva. Um, Okay, so I worked up a picture of Rod on Canva, and I'll show that to you here. I'll just share my screen right now until I get some better video equipment. I'm I'm on Zoom. Oops, shared the wrong screen there. Stop share. Oh, we did share, right. So one of the quirks of getting started on here, learning to navigate Canva here. Um, we're going to resume sharing here. And I hope you can all see. Hmm, we have to, there we go. As you can see here, there's Rod. As Canva mocked him up after I put his description into Canva. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Rod. He is a federal agent. He's been in the FBI for over 20 years. He's recently transferred to New Mexico's field office to start his life over. He's in his mid 40s and you see graying there a little bit. Um, so that's Rod. He tries to stay fit. He's usually pretty level-headed. Um, Tries to keep his wits about him in emergency situations, and you'll see a little bit of that in this book. Although he's a little overweight now, he tries to be athletic and outdoorsy and tries to keep himself occupied. Um, he enjoys hiking, fishing, starting to sound like a little bit of a, Tinder date here or something. Although he usually comes home with nothing, he enjoys the solitude. His life's changed. He has had some major tragedy in his life. He had lost his wife to breast cancer, and he has lost both of his children in a car accident that he still feels guilty about because he was driving, even though he was not at fault. He was hit by a drunk driver. Um, these events have changed Rod into somebody he probably really doesn't recognize. He says that, you know, he's different, he's changed. That's what he tells people. Um, and then like I said, he's less tolerant of bullshit now. He's less compassionate. He feels a little less for his criminals than he used to. But he still tries to do things and make sure he's doing the fair things and upright things. Like I said, I put this description into Canva, and the result was the picture that I showed you. So, what inspired this story? This story is inspired by my train ride into Albuquerque. I used to work downtown or uptown, I guess, more. And I used to have to take the train into Albuquerque every day. And I would pass through one of the Native American pueblos here. Um, and we would always have to slow down to about 20, 25 miles an hour going through the pueblo. There was usually some traffic, but it also crossed three main roads across the pueblo. Two of these roads have really quick access to Interstate 25. So one day we were stopped for what was called a train meet. And what that means is like one of the BNSF trains was coming the other direction and also needed the tracks. So we yielded to them because they own the tracks. And the train had stopped. And as I sat there and I was thinking, I was like, wow, if somebody were to rob the train right now, they could scoot off in any direction and nobody would know where they went. Because they could hop right onto I-25, go northbound, go southbound. They could stay on a surface road and then disappear into the town just south of Pueblo. So to the story, what this inspiration has become is the main character Rodney Hawks is riding the train to Albuquerque to go to the office, and he generally closes his eyes, sleeps, rests quietly. It's about a 45 minute trip. And then when he gets downtown, he walks a few blocks to his office. This particular morning, the train jerks to a stop, and a lot of things go through his mind. It's like, oh man, why did we stop? Did we hit somebody? Because we never stop here. Is there another train coming? The fact we jerked to a stop, did we hit a car that was crossing the road and skipped around the train gates? So a lot of things goes through his mind. Um, Again, like I said, it was like, oh, the train never stops. Maybe it's a train leak. So a robbery unfolds in this intersection of major roads and the train tracks. But eventually, since he's the only policeman or officer on there, being an agent, he's outmanned and he's outgunned, and he's eventually taken hostage by the guys robbing the train. So he is beaten, nearly killed, um, and as my inspiration said, the train robbers hopped on the road and disappeared off the interstate. They take Rod and others out into the desert to be left for dead. Um, However, they're discovered. And I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but this is kind of what's coming up in chapters 1 and 2. Um, Rod's in the hospital, gets found because where they get dropped is an area known for rock climbing near one of the mountains. So rock climbers find him. So he ends up in the hospital, and he finds out while he's a patient there that the charge nurse taking care of him is the daughter of the man who just did this to him and who had left him for dead. As the book unfolds now, the daughter is wanted by her father and his gang, along with Rod, because the daughter refuses to cooperate in helping the father get access to Rod while he's in the hospital. So that's where I'm going to leave you hanging this week. Hopefully, you'll come back for part 2 next week. Next week, we'll talk a little more about chapter 2. We'll get into chapter 3 and 4 about Rod's stay in the hospital. We'll also talk about a few more of the main characters from the book, some of the good guys, one of the bad guys. Don't want to give away too much about them because a lot of that's included in the book in the backstory. But you will meet Chief Holloman. You'll meet SSA Hannah. And the rest of the team from the field office who helps work to solve this mystery, to solve this crime. I hope you all have a good week, and I look forward to putting up the video next week and having a few more of you come on back. Have a great day.